From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
And it's the news for February 14, Valentine's Day. And don't forget our video version of the news. All you need to do is search WIA News on YouTube. In this week's edition of the News You Trust, we'll hear from WIA directors Peter VK8ZZ and Oscar VK3TX, along with resident thinker Jeff VK4ZZP, and Go to the Movies with John VK4JJW. Last week's 160-metre news in VK6 was broadcast by Chris, VK6JI, who kindly stepped in for Phil, VK6GX, as he has no antennas due to the enormous bushfires there. Local bushfire brigade managed to save Phil's house and garage, but the rest of the property was incinerated, including all antennas and above-ground feeders, as were most of the power lines in the area. Many of their friends and neighbours in the Tilden Park area were not so lucky, with many homes lost. He's running off generators and expects to do so for several weeks until mains power is restored. VK6GX is currently isolated by roadblocks, but thankfully a local store, which he can access, has fuel and groceries. And the local CWA girls have been distributing donated food and essentials at their Gidgee Hall. Thoughts with you and your family, Phil, VK6GX, WIA rebroadcaster in the West. Now, last week when we mentioned how Bob, VK6POP, managed to escape those fires and would be continuing bringing the local area news to VK6 from News West, we mentioned he'd be doing so as neither fire nor COVID would stop his efforts. Little did we know then that COVID would stop the Southern Hemisphere's largest ham gathering. Ed VK2JI DD5LP picks up the story.
In light of the recent new COVID events across Australia and the situation's changeable nature at present, the Executive Committee of the Central Coast Amateur Radio Club, with input from a survey of club members, has decided not to run the Wyong Field Day 2021, which was planned for Sunday the 28th of February. This is a decision that was not easy and was taken considering the safety of the club members, traders and those who attend the day. However, open your calendars as the club wishes to announce the Central Coast Amateur Radio Club Mayhem event, which will be held on Sunday the 30th of May 2021 at the Wyong Racecourse. We would like to see this one-time event attract as many visitors as the field day does every year. Who knows, this could be the largest gathering of radio amateurs in the Southern Hemisphere this year. Traders have already been contacted and informed of the new date, and we expect the exhibitor and lecturer variety to be just as broad as was planned for the 2021 field day. Full details and information regarding this event will be updated on the club's website at ccarc.org.au and through social media as it becomes available. Looking forward to No Mayhem at the Mayhem event for the Central Coast ARC. This was Ed, VK2JI.
Thanks, Ed. Now to VK5 in national news. An advanced mobile location technology has been used to save stranded kayakers from rough waters at Seacliff in South Australia, pinpointing the pair's location after a 000 call. Criticalcoms.com.au say a man on the kayak called 000, automatically activating AML, which honed in on the remote location with life-saving accuracy. With AML, smartphones use GPS, Wi-Fi and mobile network information to automatically send an SMS text message to 000 with the phone's estimated location. This SMS is sent in the background. The caller is not required to perform an action. Life-saving work at its best. New car prices here in Australia are probably going to remain relatively high, all due to a worldwide shortage of all things, a shortage of the humble semiconductor. Delays on most mainstream cars here are said to have in some cases delays of several months. At the end of the first year of the coronavirus, car sales actually boomed here. Then the shortage of semiconductors hit home. Computer chip makers are running at maximum capacity, and it's not feasible for companies to build factories to compensate for the increase in demand, Bloomberg has reported. Phone makers like Apple are more prepared to pay higher prices for the chips than automakers are, according to an analyst. Some car makers have even had to halt production due to the shortage. Ford and Fiat temporarily pausing production because they don't have enough chips. Now to WIA Director and Secretary Peter.
Good morning, Graham, and good morning, listeners. Last week, President Gregg and Vice President Lee spoke about the upcoming consultation by our regulator, the Australian Communications and Media Authority. Gregg mentioned that this consultation is something that should be both of interest and concern to all radio amateurs in Australia. Gregg also said that this very important consultation has the potential for major changes to the amateur radio service and its licensing regime. We as amateurs must carefully consider and weigh up the options that have been proposed by the ACMA. The board of the Wireless Institute of Australia met last Tuesday to discuss the proposed consultation and the WIA response. At this stage, the board will require more information in order to form an opinion on the proposed changes. The board has decided to meet with experts within the amateur community and for them to write a discussion paper which we will put out to members for comment, probably in the form of a poll like that recently conducted by the WIA. That panel will meet next week to commence the process. I will report again once the panel has met and a timetable has been determined. This has been WIA Director and Secretary Peter, VK8ZZ, for the VK1WIA National News Service.
This is the Wireless Institute of Australia and VK1WIA.
This is Oscar, VK3TX. Hamradio.org domain, now to promote amateur radio. In past days, Andrew, Kilo India 7, Romeo Yankee Charlie, donated the hamradio.org domain to the International Amateur Radio Union to be used for educational purposes and to promote the amateur and amateur satellite services. IRAU President Tim Lam, Victor Echo 6 Sierra Hotel, has expressed, the hamradio.org domain offers a unique opportunity for which we are deeply grateful to Andrew. It is our intention to develop a website that can serve as a focal point for anyone, anywhere, who might be seeking information on amateur radio, which is better known as ham radio by the general public. What's IRAU? The IRAU is the Global Federation of National Amateur Radio Organizations with member societies in more than 160 countries and separate territories. Since 1925, the IRAU has successfully defended and expanded access to the radio spectrum by radio amateurs internationally. This is Oscar, VK3TX, for WIA National News.
You are listening to VK1WIA and the broadcast of news and information. At 10:30am and 8pm each Sunday, it is carried by the VK3BWI network through VK3RMM Mount Macedon, VK3RML Mount Dandenong and VK3RMU on Mount St Leonard. Check it out. I'm Barry Robinson, VK3 Papa Victor.
Hello, I'm Jeff Emery, VK4ZPP, and I've been thinking. As if the gods of coincidence had looked upon us, when Amateur Radio Magazine #1 for 2021 arrived, I was delighted to read a well-presented and constructive two-page article and contribution by VK4WIA, Chris Burke. It is serendipity that this piece has been published, coinciding with the release of the ACMA consultation. Chris, who is a graduate teacher, has drawn the practices of other English-speaking jurisdictions in training and examining for accreditation of the various grades of amateur radio licence and the issuance of the necessary documentation. I do no better than quote the closing paragraph from Chris. For our future's sake, the present system must not be allowed to continue in its current guise. So from the video of VK3WIA last week to the written words of VK4WIA this week, I ask that people forget their hobby horses and consider where you want amateur radio to be in the future. I'm Jeff Emery, and that's what I think. How about you?
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, international news with Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello, we begin this week with news from the IARU with the assignment of a new coordinator of the Region 3 Disaster Communication Committee. Shizuo Endo, Secretary IARU Region 3, tells us that Yankee Bravo 0, Lima Bravo Tango, Amir Yuda Amanku, is now assigned the chairman as the successor of Yankee Bravo 2, Tango Juliet Victor, who passed away on December 12, 2020. A new targeted phishing campaign includes the new novel obfuscation technique of using Morse code to hide malicious URLs in an email attachment. For example, if your computer was targeted, the attachment would be named with something like your name _invoice _1308._xlxs.html. When viewing the attachment in a text editor, you can see they include JavaScript that maps letters and numbers to Morse code. For example, the letter E is mapped to a single dot. The letter B is mapped to a dash ... The script then calls a decode Morse function to decode a Morse code string into a hexadecimal string. This hexadecimal string is further decoded into JavaScript tags that are injected into the HTML page. These injected scripts, combined with the HTML attachment, contain the various resources necessary to render a fake Excel spreadsheet that states your sign-in timed out and prompts you to enter their password again. To Indonesia now, first QO100 satellite contact from Indonesia. Indonesia's National Amateur Radio Society Orari reports on the first contacts from Indonesia via the Qatar Oscar 100 geostationary satellite transponder, which took place on January 27 and involved Farid Farhan, Yankee Charlie 1 Hotel Victor Zulu. Orari's report says a team from the Telkom University Telecommunication Engineering Student Association, led by Yankee Charlie 1 Hotel Victor Zulu, succeeded in conducting the first contact from Grid Square Oscar India 33 Uniform Delta, West Java, with a satellite elevation of 0.8 degrees at an altitude of 1,200 metres. In China, the first private Chinese company to reach orbit met with failure February 1 during its second attempt to go to space. iSpace's four-stage Hyperbola 1 rocket failed to lift off while attempting to carry the CubeSat-sized Fangzhou 2 Arc-2 satellite into space. Media reports indicate the launch attempt happened around 0815 Zulu from the Jiaquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert. To Europe now, in Austria. Austria's National Amateur Radio Society, OVSV, has published its opinion of the draft of the amendment to the Telecommunications Act 2020, TKG 2020. Michael Kastelich, Oscar Echo 1, Mike Charlie Uniform, a board member of the OVSV, says the most important topics that the OVSV has taken up: to carry out amateur radio exams by radio amateurs, prevent our call signs from expiring with a lifetime licence, reduce fees and penalties, promote emergency and disaster radio, and troubleshooting by the authority. Austrian hams have been asked to make their own submissions but warn against just copying previous submissions. In France, 12 bottles of Bordeaux wine and dozens of vine shoots are back home in southwest France after spending months on the International Space Station for an unusual astrochemistry experiment. The red wine and 320 mature shoots, known as canes, arrived February 1 after their return to Earth via a Dragon capsule operated by SpaceX. They will be analysed at the Institute of Vine and Wine Science in Bordeaux to see how the stresses produced by zero gravity affect both grape growth and the finished product. which could spur new agricultural research. And wrapping up this week's international news from the USA, RMS Titanic Incorporated, the company that owns salvage rights to the Titanic shipwreck, has indefinitely put off its plans to retrieve the vessel's radio equipment for exhibit. The company cited the coronavirus pandemic for the delay, according to a court filing the company made on January 29. The Atlanta-based company said it plans to have faced increasing difficulty associated with international travel and logistics, and the associated health risks to the expedition team. RMST's primary source of revenue comes from its exhibits of its vast collection of Titanic relics, which have been closed or seen only limited attendance due to virus-related restrictions. RMST is a subsidiary of Premier Exhibitions and the possessor of the Titanic wreck site, said its planned expedition to recover the ship's wireless station equipment remains a top priority, however, and it will take place as soon as reasonably practicable. The Marconi-equipped station transmitted the distress calls after the Titanic struck an iceberg some 370 miles off the coast of Newfoundland in 1912 and began sinking. The transmissions, heard by nearby vessels, have been credited with helping rescue some 700 passengers in lifeboats deployed from the Titanic, but about 1,500 passengers were lost in the disaster. RMST said the radio transmitter could unlock some of the secrets about a missed warning message and distress calls sent from the ship. For WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2WIA.
Across Australia from VK1WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service in the Northern Territory, and you can be heard on repeaters 146,900, 146,950, or frequencies 14.337, 10.137, 7.193, 3.555, and I am Carl with a K, call sign Victor Kilo 8 Charlie Alpha Whiskey.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now operational news with Felix, VK4FUQ.
Hello there. Your Russell Memorial VHF contest logs due by a week's end. So, don't forget, if you made contacts in the Russell during January, you only have till February 19. Remember, the job's not done till the paperwork's finished. The big contest on now is the CQ Worldwide British WPX contest running for 48 hours from midnight Friday to midnight Sunday. Single operators may only operate for 30 hours in total. The multipliers in this one are prefixes and the exchange is signal port plus serial number. CQ Worldwide British WPX contest this weekend, February 13-14. International DXCW contest February 2021. The CQ Worldwide 160 metres SSB contest is end of the month, February 26 to 28. International DX phone contest March 6 and 7. Commonwealth contest BERU 13-14 March. WIA John Moore Field Day 2021. March from UTC 0100 hours on Saturday 20 to 0059 hours Sunday the 21st. DX window. Pride Radio Group will be operating the special event call sign VI 2021 Pride during the Sydney Mardi Gras, February 19 to March 7th. Kuwait Amateur Radio Society is operating as 9K60 NLD throughout February, celebrating Kuwait's 60th National Day, which is February the 25th, and Liberation Day, which is February the 26th. QSL via 9K2 RA. All stations from Kuwait may also use the 9K60 prefix during this time. Mozambique. C91 VBA from Maputo starts February 18. Be listening on the 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metre bands SSB and digital. QSL via the Bureau using S7AMN. The RAAF is flying high to celebrate its 100 years on March 31. The Royal Australian Air Force call signs the target are VI 100AF March 1 to 29 May, VK 100AF March 1 to 31 August. Promoting the 30th anniversary of Japanese 7-call insurance with the special station until the 22nd of April is 8J17 call. So far, overall result from the beginning is over 18,500 QSOs, and the month taking in December-January over 2,000, including 204 DX QSOs. Argentina. Special event station L21RCA's QRP during all of 2021 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of IAA Member Society Radio Club Argentino, QSL via LU4AA. And now to our segment we call Just Repeating. New repeater equipment at Mount Archer. Steve, VK4SM, has advised via the Rockhampton and District Amateur Radio Club Facebook page that different equipment for the VK4RAR 2-meter repeater has been installed and is under test, with early indications that the new equipment is 6 decibels more sensitive on receive than the old equipment. VK4SM asks that regional hams living a bit further out of Rocky do some listening and report the results. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FU Queuinningham.
From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. Available on RF and on demand 24/7 from the WIA.org.au website.
I'm John Williams, VK4JJW, and this is Media Watch. Freestyle Digital Media has released a trailer for Dead Air, a supernatural psychological thriller from filmmaker Kevin Hicks. Not to be confused with the Zombies radio horror film, also titled Dead Air from 2009. However, they both involve radio, but this is a different kind of radio. Struggling to uncover the truth of a deeply repressed memory of an old trauma, William discovers an old ham radio that belonged to his dead father. In his fascination with it, he stumbles into contact with Eva, a woman with a dark secret of her own. Their two worlds collide, and William is rushed down a path that's paved with deceit, lies, and an awful truth, a truth that pulls him into a world of darkness from which he cannot escape. For many an old radio broadcaster, the title alone sends shivers up your spine. Dead Air! Will the content director be first to phone? Media Watching, I'm John, VK4JJW.
Now, special interest group news with Cole, VK3GTV.
Hello and welcome to the segment. First up, it's CW. As of the 31st of January, only 61 radio hams use CW in South Africa. SARL News reports there are plans to hold a biannual census of amateur radio CW users in South Africa, but Michael, ZS6MSW, says that it's a growing population of CW operators. The 61 are regularly on CW within the Republic of South Africa. The aim of the census is to have the call signs and names published in an SARL newsletter in April this year to begin an historic growth pattern with which they can monitor significance. It will be a biannual census with the cut-off date on the 1st of April 2021 as the first half. With the key down, it's off to Canada, and Sea Cadet PO2 Duncan Cullerton, VA3FSY, has recently received his federal Morse code operator license endorsement. His examiner is quoted as reporting, "He has a particularly good fist-perfect character formation and spacing steady speed." As one of the cadets that obtained his amateur radio license, Duncan went on to study Morse code, adding that endorsement to his license. The Communications Department of the Sea Cadet Corps, led by Matthew Batten, VE3ZQW, was launched as a local unit initiative to introduce more science, technology, engineering and math back into the optional Sea Cadet training program, as well as a primer for naval/maritime communications using amateur radio. Cadets are currently being trained towards their own amateur radio qualifications, with plans to have the unit station, VA3GKY, accredited as a Canadian Forces affiliate radio service station, as well as an amateur radio emergency service ARES station, allowing Duncan and the other cadets to take part in Canadian Forces, Coast Guard, Police, Emergency and Disaster Communications training. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier. RadFXSat2/Fox1E is designated AMSAT Oscar 109, or AO 109. On January 17, 2021, the RadFXSat2 CubeSat was launched on a Launcher 1 vehicle off the coast of California. RadFXSat2 is a joint mission of AMSAT and the Institute for Space and Defense Electronics at Vanderbilt University. The satellite carries a telemetry beacon and a linear transponder, along with radiation effects experiments. The telemetry beacon has not yet been heard, but the transponder is partially operational at reduced signal strength. Work continues to recover the telemetry beacon and characterize the transponder with the goal of opening it for general use. Worldwide Special Interest Group's military. New quantum receiver is the first to detect the entire radio frequency spectrum, says the US Army Research Laboratory. Both RF and real-world signals unleashing new potentials for soldier communications, spectrum awareness and electronic warfare. Army researchers built the quantum sensor which can sample the radio frequency spectrum from 0 frequency up to 20 gigahertz and detect AM and FM radio, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and other communication signals. 0 to 20 gig, now that's a scanner. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Radio Scouting. Girl Guides Thinking Day on the air is next weekend, 20 to 21st of February. The Alara Echolink conference station will be available for use by Girl Guides during the weekend, and for more details, contact Norma, VK2WIA. For WIA National News, I'm Col, VK3GTV.
You're tuned to VK1WIA News. This news broadcast can be heard on linked repeaters VK6 AUF Perth 438.525 and VK6 RMS Mount Saddleback 147.250 Sundays 9am and 7pm. I'm Trevor, VK6YJ.
Clubbing and a couple of Wednesdays back, Reist in Hobart had a presentation by Dr. Mike, VK7MJ, listening to the planets. Decimetric radio emissions from the planet Jupiter were first identified by Burke and Franklin while calibrating a 22 MHz antenna array in Maryland, USA, 1955. This was confirmed by data collected by Alex Shane in Australia and opened a new field of planetary astronomy. This talk was a brief outline of the early histories of decametric radio astronomy and how observations in Tasmania and New Zealand between 1971 and 75 provided the first dynamic spectra of the Jovian radio bursts. Check out the Reist YouTube channel.
This is VK1WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions. www.wia.org.au.
On the social scene, VK3WIA Camfest, the Italian Sports Club Werribee, February 21. VK2 the Wyong Field Day, it's cancelled. VK6 the Peel Amateur Radio Club Swap Meet, March 6 at Mandurah Bowling Club. VK4 Tannum Sands Gathering in March, advised by VK4YN. Well, VK4ZZ is advised, February 10, it's off. VK3 EMDRC Hamfest, March 28 at 10am. VK4's Redfest, April 10. VK2 the Mayhem, that's at the Wyong Racecourse, May 30. Alara Meet 2021 is held in Bendigo, October 1 through 4. And Rosebud, the Radio Fest in VK3 by Spark, 9:30am, November 14. So now, until next we do meet, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.